This is a video tutorial and introduction for the app Class Dojo. Class Dojo is a behavior tracking app made primarily for the elementary and middle level. It's definitely a teacher app and not a student app. There is a Class Dojo student version which is focused on developing metacognitive and self-reliance skills through self-assessment of behaviors and being on task, being on time, prepared, etc. But that is not included in this app. That's an additional one, and currently we don't have that installed on anything, but if you'd like to request it, please do. So Class Dojo is for, as I said, for teachers to track behaviors of their students. And when I say behaviors, it could be obvious behaviors of appropriate versus inappropriate, but it could also be things that are a little bit more specific, like in terms of how they manage transitions, if they have particular materials that they're bringing to class, or if they're following class routines. You have a great level of adaptability in what you're doing. So I have Class Dojo open right now in my iPad. You notice that the first button that comes up here is Invite Colleagues. If you decide to use Class Dojo, it has the ability to track between classes. So at the elementary level, if you have students going to specialties for art, music, phy-ed, etc., and you have the ability to share this with them, and they can track behaviors on the same students, so that you could get a greater picture as to whether or not a student is meeting behavior expectations. And at the middle level, if kids are rotating between core teachers, you have the ability to share that within the core, so that, again, students can be tracked and you can get more of an accurate picture of their behaviors. So right now we're going to create a class just to show you what you would do to do that. You only have two options here. You have a settings option up here at the gear, and then you have a plus up here. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to click that plus, and that allows me to create a class. So I can change this to one of these other ones that are these icons that are based more on my class. So I guess if I'm science, maybe I'll do this one, or if I am I'm a language teacher, so I'll pick a picture of the globe. And I'd put in my class name, so I already have a French 1 in there, so I'm going to put in a French 2. And then grade, I'm going to put in other. Come on. And then subject down here in world languages. Now the question is, what is the point of putting in these other two fields for other and world languages? And the only reason is if you plan to share this out with other teachers or have tracking. Because what it does is it provides additional labels for those who are working with multiple classes or viewing multiple data points, a way of more easily accessing that information. Then I would click Create Class, and now it's creating this. And now you see students, behaviors, and behaviors. And it's behaviors that are positive and behaviors that are negative. So the first thing that you would do is in behaviors, or excuse me, in students, you'd go through and you would enter in the students. And so I'm going to click the little plus. Okay, and it's taking a second here. Freezing up on me. Okay, and now in the student name section, I would put in the student's name. So I'm just going to have John Smith. And you'll notice how when I space out, it automatically, when I go to the next word, it capitalizes it, so it's pretty quick with entering, but you do have to enter by hand. When I click Done, you'll notice that I get a little gerbil character up there with John Smith. I can change that if I want to, and they have different options that are available. But you can see how this is the kind of cutesy nature of it. It's geared more towards the elementary school. Okay, and I would go through and put my entire class roster in there. Again, this is why it's a little bit more geared towards an elementary school. if you have more limited students, it's easier to put them in. If you have, say, at the middle level or at the high school level, and you've got 5 classes of 25 to 30 kids, that's a lot of inputting to do. Granted, you only have to do it once and it remembers it, but again, that's still a lot of inputting by hand. Alright, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at, I would put my whole roster in there, I'm going to go behaviors. These are the default behaviors. And these are specifically default positive behaviors, and they're positive because you see that the icons here are all colored. In the negative area, they're all red. I can go up and to edit, and I'm going to click edit with my finger here, and you'll notice that the little subtraction sign pops up. And if I want to get rid of something and I say, persistence, that doesn't really work for me. I don't want that. I can go and I can click that, and it's going to ask me, do you want me to delete it? I tap delete. It's just confirming it, and then boom, it's gone. One thing to keep in mind is if you do this after you started using the app, you can have some issues with it subtracting out those behaviors and kind of messing with some of your data. So you kind of want to get a good idea of what what behaviors you're going to have before you start actually awarding them to students. And now say there's one that I have that's not on here, so that I want to add. So I'm going to click add for behavior name, and in that box I'm going to type in materials because I'm tracking whether or not the student's bringing their materials to class. And the thumbs up, that's pretty good, but I wonder if there's anything better. So I'm going to click this and I'm going to hold down over the hand, and here's the things that pop up. Well, I'm somewhat limited in what I have here, but I'm going to click the little palette here and say that it's materials because that's at least a tangible object. Okay, and now I have that option. So I would go through and I do that for positive and negative, so you can see how it's completely customizable in terms of what behaviors you want to track. And then there's other things here, off task, talking out of turn, unprepared. It's going to be the most useful if you don't use the defaults and you actually go in and try to get as specific as possible, because you've got room to add a whole bunch of behaviors below this, and the more specific the behaviors you're tracking, the better data you'll get to be able to analyze what's working and not working with the student, and also to convey very specific information to parents. Alright, so that's how you would set up a class. Now I'm going to go into this one because I have a few more students in here. I have 5 students. I could go in and I could take attendance on here to keep track. This doesn't integrate with anything. So if you're thinking that it will integrate with Skyward or something, and there's no capability for that, it's essentially just in the reporting. When you're reporting out the behaviors that you've tracked in here, you could also report attendance with that. Typically, this works better for say a resource teacher, or sometimes when kids are migrating to a specialty or something like that, than it does for a core teacher. Then I could start class. So I'm going to click, which is right here. I'm going to click that, and now I have my students. And they already have some behaviors because I've already started class, but those are the little numbers, positive or negative, are what I've awarded. So if I click on K first, say I see that K first is on task. I'm going to go down and I'm going to click on task to award that to him, and you see that this number comes up here. Whereas Marky Mark, okay, he's talking out of turn, so I'm going to click that. Oops, there we go. And you see that the number went down for that day. And then later on, I see again he's off task. And then later on again, oh, now he's being disrespectful. And later on after that, he's bullying another student. So you can continue to see that it's going down for this. The other way that it's useful is when you have all of your kids in here and say you need to call on kids or to ensure that you're not calling on the same kids, you can select random. And what that will do, when I click random, it randomly selects a student. So okay, this would be the student that I call on. And then depending on their answer or whether they're ready, I can say, oh, Susie, you were unprepared, and I'll click unprepared and she'll be notated as that. and then I'll click random for the next student, and it goes up to K first, and oh, yep, he gets 1 for awesomeness because he had his work and he was ready to go. And that way you're not always calling on the same kids. And then at the end of the day, if they're all doing great work, I can go up and I can also do a select all, and I could say their teamwork was awesome and award that for all of them. Now, if I go back, I can then go to check reports. And check reports then gives me a rating based on, okay, how are we doing? And so if I go into Susie, that overall she's got a 67% positive rating in class. She's got 1 positive and 1 needs work. Currently I'm viewing for this week, which is up here, but I can dial this to what I need. I can go on just today, I can go on this month, I can go on last month, etc. So I can go back and look. This is a helpful thing where you can just take out your iPad if you're in a conference with a parent and say, here's your child, here are the things, here's this week. Man, there are a lot of reds this week. Overall, mostly negative. But then throughout last week, it was really positive. So what's going on, or something like that. So it's a graphical and pretty simplistic way to look at some of that information. Beyond that, though, remembering that it keeps track of information within here. So you'll notice the different colors, that if I go around, I can look at overall how are we doing on each of these categories. And let me go into this one. Same thing here. I can go around and look at how are we doing in the categories. But it's housed within here, and that's the only limitation of this, is despite the ability to share and invite colleagues, you're somewhat limited in your account in terms of what you can do, and that's because it's a free app. So beyond housing them within a school and inviting other teachers or perhaps an administrator to also be on this same system, you don't have the ability to do great exports and export the data into some other tracking device, or say, if a student's off task 5 times, I've tracked that and now I can refer them and so forth. It doesn't have that capability. It's more so just for the teacher to use in class. But overall, in an elementary setting, it's a pretty cool app for keeping track of the behaviors, both positive and negative.